Go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by the channel. Back for a regular, I guess it's kind of a regular Saturday SitRep. Last week, Saturday SitRep was exclusively about the situation in Uvalde, Texas. We're going to be talking about Uvalde again today, but we're also going to be talking about the Coof a little bit. If you don't know what the Coof is, it's that particular virus that we've been dealing with that has caused, well, quite frankly, a viral outbreak of authoritarianism and dictatorship here in the United States and across the world. I was listening to my friend Buck Johnson from the Counterflow podcast today. In his live stream, he had a guest on from the Netherlands, and he was talking about their situation there. And oh boy, watch that light, TC. Man, he's too bright. And if you get a chance, go over to Counterflow and subscribe to Buck's content, but also listen to the conversation you had today, because they've only been out of lockdown in the Netherlands for about 2 months, something like that. You think we had it rough here. Anyway, buy coffee. Just got word from a friend today who tried their coffee for the first time and said it's the best coffee they've ever had. And she shared it out to a couple of groups, I think, and told people to buy. And I agree. Buy my coffee. If you want to buy my coffee, you can find it on, well, a private message. Well, you don't get the coffee through the private message, by the way, but you can send me a private message on Facebook at TC Pearson, or send me an email at to tcpearson@protonmail.com and let me know where you live and how much you want, and I will let you know what the cost of the coffee and the shipping will be. Also, I have merch, as you can see. I'm using this little there. You like that? I like these little mason jars. These are fun. So yeah, anyway, let's get down to it. As you know, we have been dealing with the Coof for over 2 years now, and strangely enough, we're in an election cycle, and so what are we starting to hear is that certain variants and strains of the Coof are starting to become resistant to treatments and the jab and on and on and on. And what I have noticed is that like local officials now are starting to share more from the CDC and their state health departments. Like, so here in the case of Minnesota, in particular, Mayor Kim Norton of Rochester has been starting to put out more about, if you feel sick, stay home. What do you need to do? Everybody should mask up and yada, yada, yada. Look, they're not going to let this go, people. And when you couple that with the fact that they have demonstrated that we are willing to comply. Now, not all of us, not everybody is going to comply. We know that. It's just factual. There are stubborn cusses like me out there who are saying, I'm not complying. I'm not getting a jab. I'm not staying home. I'm not wearing a facial covering. And there have been moments where I've worn one. I had a situation today where I had to put on a facial covering. Didn't bother me under the circumstances. And there are times it's okay. But by and large, people are compliant, and they have become complacent in their compliance to the point where now there are still massive amounts of people out there. I live in southeast Minnesota, and I did some driving today for some reasons, and I stopped at several different retail locations. And a good 25 to 35% of the people that I ran into were wearing facial coverings. And I know that sounds like a lot, but there were literally, in one store, there were well over 100 people there, and there were well over 25 people that I saw wearing facial coverings. Now, you want to wear a facial covering? I don't care. I mean, state law says you can't, by the way. It's illegal to cover your face in the state of Minnesota, except for on the prescription of a doctor, or incident to a Halloween celebration or something like that. But what they've done is they so rapidly and so quickly developed a hive mind in people that now, instead of being shocked when you see somebody wearing a mask or wondering, oh, well, I wonder what's wrong with this individual. They must be sick. They must have a weakened immune system. Whatever the case might be, people are now just used to putting them on and leaving them on. And I see it especially in Rochester constantly. People driving in a car by themselves wearing a facial covering, walking down the street wearing a facial covering. People love to be told what to do. They absolutely love it. And they have us in that place now where anytime they start to ramp up the fear on something, we willingly comply. And there again, I'm painting with a broad brush. But what I don't think people understand is they're going to keep throwing different things at us. So like monkeypox right now, I can still say monkeypox. I don't have to come up with a new name for that. Although I do have some friends that are starting to refer to it as moneypox, which I think is a good idea because, well, it's just funny. So what we're dealing with is them throwing stuff at us to keep us in a constant state of fear, perpetual fear. If we're in perpetual fear, then we will respond to that perpetual fear by asking them to protect us, to keep us safe. And they like that power. And I keep the they I'm referring to is the state. And I had mentioned before that I'll be doing some conversation on what I mean by the state. If you haven't had an opportunity yet, check out Murray Rothbard's The Anatomy of a State. It's not a real long read by any stretch of the imagination. If you listen to it, it only takes like an hour, I think. But it's interesting that once they gain that power, how easily we allow them to have that power, but two, how hard they fight to keep that power, and how much they work to marginalize anybody who fights against that power. Another thing that I'm going to be talking about is, and this is kind of related to Uvalde and now the cries for gun control, and is when you are a dissonant voice, the people in power, be they on the left or the right, but the power people like to marginalize the dissonant voices, and they do that by attacking your mental health. Now, I find that a scary proposition because mental illness is a very serious thing in the United States. We do not treat it the way it should be treated. We don't address it the way it should be addressed. And we still marginalize these people, and it makes for an easy way to kind of besmirch people. It's really easy to go, oh, well, don't listen to that person. They're crazy. Oh, they're mentally ill. Oh, they have a mental health issue or emotional health issue. And it's a form of the ad hominem logical fallacy, for one, but it is also insulting to people with genuine mental health issues. And I'm going to touch on that here once I start to talk about Uvalde. But the state likes to use mental illness as a reason why you don't agree with them and why you're a dissonant voice. And one of the things that we've seen in the history of the world is that governments, if you will frequently criminalize mental illness. The Soviet Union created a whole new mental illness, and they refer to it as sluggish schizophrenia. And they use that diagnosis to take people and justify locking them away forever because they were dissonant voices. And what they would do is they would diagnose these people with this sluggish schizophrenia so that they could remove them from public view. Oh, see, look, this person's ill. We're going to have to treat them. And that ties in now to a conversation I had over the last week about the events in Uvalde. But the first thing I want to talk about with Uvalde is this story right here. Let people, and by the way, if you haven't yet, I put out a video a couple of days ago, one on my main Facebook profile, which is now currently in Facebook jail. And then I put it up on YouTube, and I would really encourage you to go watch it. That particular video is called TC Hates Cops, We Have the Proof. And it's not what you think it is, but I do strongly encourage you to check it out because TC doesn't hate cops. But I do think it's a very important view for you guys to understand where I'm at in how those of us that are conservatives, traditionalists, liberty-minded, or even libertarians, how we should be viewing law enforcement and the importance of why we view law enforcement the way we do. So please do go check out the video, TC Hates Cops and We Have the Proof. The reality of the situation in Uvalde is there were a lot of tragic decision making, not mistakes. They weren't just simple mistakes. There were lots of tragic decisions that were made. Some of them, I believe, were made out of sheer willful, dangerous cowardice. None more egregious in my eye than what was done by the chief of the Uvalde School District Police. Now, it has come out that several of the officers that were on scene, not all of them were from Uvalde police or the school district police, but several of the officers on scene finally had enough, and they decided to act in the face of these wicked, evil orders that were given by the wicked, evil man who ordered his staff to not breach the room. And we're going to take a look at this story. This story was put out by Your Tango. It says Uvalde officer allegedly defied commands by saving children while being ordered to stand down. So if you can see this here, how's that looking on there? Let's try this. Is that a little better? No, that's there. We'll go with that one. Oh no, let's try this one. Hey, yeah, that's nice. I like that one. This officer, there we go. As the investigation in the May 24th shooting at the Robb Elementary School continues, the slow police response is a key question in the minds of Uvalde families. And look, and it's not just Uvalde families. This is happening all over the country right now. According to a recent report, the chief of the small school district police force in Uvalde was on the scene 2 minutes after Salvador Ramos, and I don't know why I shouldn't have named him. He doesn't deserve to be named, other than stated that he's burning in the fires of hell right now. burst into the 2 connected classrooms where he shot and killed 19 students, 2 teachers, and wounded 17 others. Yet it would take another hour for the gunman to be stopped. In the hour that followed, officers gathered around the building and were ordered to stand down rather than immediately confront Ramos, an order that has been the source of outrage ever since news of the shooting broke. Instead, it was reportedly a group of officers defying orders who eventually stopped the Robb Elementary School shooting. And this is a picture of one of them. He is from the Homeland Security Investigations, basically Border Patrol. New York Times has compiled interviews with law enforcement officials, children who survived, parents who were witnesses outside to chronicle the moments leading to the shooting's end, finding many apparent breakdowns in tactical decisions. But is reportedly a group of law enforcement officers who went against their superiors who are responsible for bringing the terror inside the classroom to an end, albeit too late to save everyone. They broke in after a 10-year-old girl, her name is Chloe Torres, got on the phone with 911, said there's a lot of bodies and my teacher needs help. And she stayed on the phone for 17 minutes while this murderous madman walked around the room shooting people. There was no chain of command. Reportedly, there's been no chain of command. And here's something else. We were told that it was breached by a SWAT team or a tactical team. We're finding out that that's not true. The officers who eventually breached the classroom were reportedly not a formal tactical team, but an ad hoc gathering of officers who had gathered outside the classroom. So I got this guy who's been harassing me and saying that there was a SWAT team that was planning. We're finding out that that's not true. So here it goes again. TC comes out, makes some statements that sound pretty harsh, pretty heavy, but guess what? We find out what we've been finding out for the last 2 years. 98% of the time when TC says something, it's true, it's accurate. The officers, the group included specially trained Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents and a sheriff's deputy, according to the New York Times, who decided they were not waiting for permission any longer. As they approached the classroom with the janitor's key to unlock the door, one of them heard a command crackling in his earpiece: "Do not breach." Why? Can somebody tell me why that's the case? Can somebody please, for the love of God and for the love of all that's holy, why would you say no? Why would you tell these men to stand down? Now, the part of me would say, why did these guys wait an hour? Almost an hour. Okay, I've already expressed my discontent with that decision, but at least these guys had the cojones enough to get up and say, enough's enough. We're not listening to this anymore. See, this is what should have happened from the moment they got there. And I know it sounds like I'm being hard, but do we understand? This is what makes for heroism, ladies and gentlemen. These guys stood up not only in the face of hostility, but they stood up in the face of potential disciplinary action for disobeying a direct order, and they went in. They went in. And what's it say here? After the "do not breach" command came over, they entered the classroom and killed the gunman, finding the 21 victims and other injured survivors. Why it took a group willing to defy orders to save these survivors remains under investigations. Reports have also emerged of parents begging officers to enter before being arrested for making these requests. So, can you guys see this? Let me see. We're gonna have to. We'll stop sharing. We'll share the new one now. Uvalde mom says police handcuffed her before she jumped a fence and rescued her kids from shooting. Now, that's not technically arrest, but excuse me. Let's think about this. All right. A Texas mother whose 2 children were inside the Robb Elementary School during Tuesday's mass shooting reportedly jumped the fence and ran into the building to save her kids after noticing Uvalde police weren't doing anything. Angeli Rose Gomez, who drove 40 miles from her job as a farm supervisor to the elementary school when she heard about the shooting, told the Wall Street Journal about the lack of response from law enforcement as the gunman barricaded, nice little typo there, by the way, as the gunman barricaded himself in a 4th-grade classroom. The police were doing nothing, Gomez, whose 2 children were in the 2nd and 3rd grade, told the Journal. They were just standing outside the fence. They weren't going in there or running anywhere. Now, do we want every Tom, Dick, and Harry mom and soccer mom and football mom and track mom and tiger mom and helicopter mom rushing into that building? No, you don't necessarily want that. But what would you expect from a parent when you see that the majority of people aren't doing anything? What do we want from these parents? Like, we have a core group of men who finally said enough is enough. They're stopped following the orders and got up and did the right thing. And see, ladies and gentlemen, for people in law enforcement, a lawful order is that kind of order which actually requires you to do your job according to the oath that you swore to the Constitution of both the United States and to the state that you work in. Any order that violates that, any order that causes you to do something that puts people in harm's way, or causes you to not help people who need the help, is an unlawful order. And anybody issuing said unlawful order should be summarily fired and then charged and tried and disciplined in the most severe way possible. It should not, and I'm not knocking these guys, okay? I understand it's in the face of gunfire and in the face of not knowing what's going through the heads of your commanders. It's got to be really hard to say enough is enough. But why did it take them so long, and why was it just such a small group of them that went through? You know what it says about these guys? It says about those guys, look, they're actually they know. Like, hey, we're here to actually protect and serve. And what else it says is that the others who didn't go through the door with them are bigger cowards than I thought. And they should lose their jobs. And they should be tried. And they should be found guilty. And they should be imprisoned. And the people giving the orders, and even the one who was giving the orders as the guys were breaching the door that said, do not breach, do not breach, do not breach. That person is a treasonous coward and should be treated the way treasonous cowards should be treated in this country. And I think you know what I mean. There's another very sad story related to this. And I want to share that. And then I'm going to move on and to a couple of other things and then finish up. Uvalde survivor says classmate who was shot after police ordered her to yell while classmate was shot after police ordered her to yell while hiding from shooter. A 4th grade boy who survived the devastating mass shooting at Robb Elementary recalled the moment that the shooter killed one of his classmates in front of him. The boy who was not named spoke to local news outlets saying that the shooter, who was identified as bag of crap rotting in hell, came into the classroom and told the children it's time to die. He shot the next person's door. We have a door in the middle. He opened it. He came in and crouched a little bit and said, "It's time to die." Bag of crap then stormed into the elementary school armed with armed with an assault rifle and tactical vest, barricaded himself in adjoining children's classrooms and opened fire, killing 19 children and 2 teachers. When I heard the shooting through the door, I told my friend to hide under something so he won't find us, he said. I was hiding hard, and I was telling my friend to not talk because he's going to hear us. Can you imagine how terrifying this would be? I'm trying to understand this. I was hiding hard. The boy, along with 4 of his other classmates, hid under a table that had a tablecloth over it, which may have shielded them from the shooter's view and saved their lives. He detailed the moment that police entered the school and one of his classmates unfortunately became a target. When the cops came, the cop said, "Yell if you need help." And one of the people in my class said, "Help." The guy overheard. He came in and shot her. The cop barged into that classroom. The guy shot at the cop, and the cop started shooting. I don't know if you could take that as an order, and I can understand why the cops went through that door and said, "If you need help, yell." But can't we all agree? Can we just come together on this issue and agree that it wouldn't have been as bad as it was if they would have just gone in way before that? Can we agree to that? Please? Can we agree that the ones who didn't go in should be held accountable? Can we agree to that? Can we agree to the fact that the cops who stood there and held parents back, even if we don't want people rushing into an active shooter situation, can we agree that the ones who tased a parent should be held accountable? Can we agree to that? So we got to stop the hero worship. They don't get a pass because we worship a badge. They don't get a pass just because they put on a uniform. In fact, the standard's higher for them. I lost a friend this week who, instead of having the conversation with me, accused me of hating cops and of radically changing and not being the same person that he knew me to be for the last few years. And you know what? He's probably right. I'm not the same person he knew. I understand that some of this is probably going to be one of the reasons why I'm not getting the views that I've been getting the last few weeks. And some of the things I'm saying don't fly with people in the conservative movement. And a lot of the people that have been watching like the fact that I'm starting to affiliate myself with the conservative wing of the Libertarian Party. But, I'm only saying what my convictions are. And right now, my conservative friends in the Republican Party are still hero worshiping And they're not willing to ask hard questions of the people that they worship as heroes. So, no, I'm not comfortable with just saying, well, mistakes were made, but that's just the way it is. It's a fluid situation. We don't have a choice. We just have to accept that sometimes bad things happen, and bad people do bad things, and there's nothing that cops can do about it. Like, I'm not asking the cops to be, the end all and be all of stopping every major situation from developing, because they can't be everywhere, which is why I'm adamantly opposed to all gun control. Not just a couple of things of gun control. All gun control is illegal. All gun control is unconstitutional. And those kind of statements get me in trouble. Those kind of statements are called radical by people. But I'm okay with that. You want to think I'm a radical? Fine, think I'm a radical. If you want to think I'm a crazy crackpot, I don't care. I'm waiting for the government to designate me, as a person who has sluggish schizophrenia, and that's the next topic. And I'm going to end with this one. Everybody's talking about mental health, and ladies and gentlemen, mental health is definitely something that needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed, and it needs to be handled very carefully. It needs to be handled with grace and a measured mercy that we just have to strive for. I do not speak from a place of a lack of understanding in this. Trust me, I understand mental health far better than 98% of the people you're going to run into, for a lot of different reasons. But I read a comment this last week that said, none of this is going to stop until we take everybody with mental illness and isolate them from civilized society. This person is against gun control, which I am too. But his answer is, these people are all mentally ill, and none of this ends until we take all the mentally ill people and we isolate them from civilized society. And I pushed back and I asked him, what do you mean by that? Because it's a very broad brush to paint with. And his answer was, I said what I said. I was going to show the screenshots of what he said, and I've decided I don't want to do that. I don't want to put him out on blast. Well, I want to, but I'm not going to. But here's the deal. The guy in Uvalde had no criminal record and no mental health diagnosis. Sarah says, yes, 1,000% with you. Tara says, that will make mental illness worse. Yeah. And does that include mothers with postpartum depression? And that's the questions I started to ask. Where do you draw the line? Clinical depression, major depression, bipolar disorder, 1 and 2, borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, psychopathy, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. Where do you draw the line? People with mental illness need help. And what we've got to get better about is recognizing that instead of stigmatizing it. Well, the reason that people with mental illness don't get help, the reason why your neighbor with PTSD, because he was fighting an illegal, immoral war in Afghanistan for over 20 years, came home and blew out his wife's brains all over the kitchen floor and then took his own life. The reason he didn't get help, sorry. The reason these people don't get help is because they've been stigmatized. And people tell them they should be isolated from civilized society. Well, I got news for you, people. People with mental illness are civilized society. You want to tell the cop, these people that you worship, who's gone to tragic accident after tragic accident, to children being beaten by their parents, to beaten to death, or little girls who have been sexually abused by the neighborhood predator over and over and over again, who develop complex PTSD. Like, you want to tell them that they should be isolated from civilized society? That's you want to isolate these people from civilized society? Who's going to be left to fight for you? And until you've actually known somebody who has struggles with genuine mental illness, not just some idiot who says, "Oh, I've got PTSD because I almost had a car accident 2 years ago. A deer ran out in front of me and I almost got rear-ended by a semi and now my doctor says I have PTSD." You know, you don't. Shut up. Go home. Until you've actually met and dealt with someone who actually has a genuine mental illness, you have no idea what you're saying when you say we have to isolate these people from civilized society. No, we need to get them help, and we need to get them understanding, and we need to get them on medications to get them to a place where they can get better. And for you weird, I know people who literally believe that the only reason anybody struggles with mental illness is because they're not right with the Lord. And you guys know I'm a Christian. But the right answer to this is not to tell people, well, the Lord's never going to heal them until they decide they want to follow him better. It's BS. God's not going to interfere in their life like that. He doesn't work that way. You got to be obedient to him if you want to get things from him. That's not the God I serve. As a Christian, that is not the God I serve. And if you're a Christian, that's not the God you serve. You might think that, but that's not how he works. And in fact, the Bible is replete with incident or occasion after occasion after occasion where Jesus did wonderful things for people who weren't believers. See, God doesn't like deliver things to you because you're a good, obedient little child, and then he protects you from all the bad things in the world, and he doesn't want you to be uncomfortable, and so he does stuff. No, see, mental illness is real. It's not a spiritual condition any more than cancer is a spiritual condition. I can't see cancer, well, unless it's skin cancer, but I can't see cancer, but it's real. And medication and treatment work. And mental illness is real. And just because we see it as a chemical imbalance in the mind, it doesn't mean that it's not real, and doesn't mean that people don't need therapy. It doesn't mean they don't need counseling. It doesn't mean they don't need medication, and that it's just some sort of weird sin issue in their life. It's real. And the idea that locking these people away into some safe little enclave where they can just go be crazy together is going to protect us is nuts, because evil is evil is evil is evil is evil, and evil people do evil things. And sometimes the evil people doing evil things are the chief of police of Uvalde, Texas school district, telling his men to not go into that room. That's evil. Maybe he should be locked away from civilized society. He doesn't get a pass. The shooter doesn't get a pass because he might have had a mental illness and it's not his fault. evil is evil. In targeting people who have a mental health diagnosis and saying it's okay to strip them of their liberties because of a medical condition is evil. And it does not solve the problem. Whether you like it or not. And gun control isn't going to stop this from happening either. It's going to continue to happen until we start to do the things that need to be done to defend our most precious and innocent, unprotected people. Everyone calling for gun control right now, everyone calling for all of these mental illnesses to be dealt with in a way where they can't get to these situations. They're all protected. Notice that? They're all protected. They all have health care paid for by you and me. Every single one of them. The answer to this is not more gun control. The answer to this is not locking up away all of the mentally ill people. Because I got news for you. Once they realize that they can do that, it'll be the Soviet Union. It will be sluggish schizophrenia. They'll look at every single person who has an opinion that they don't like and they'll say, oh, that person's clearly mentally ill. We must lock them away. Because if we don't, they could be dangerous to society. And we can't have dangerous people in society. Think on that. Who do you want in charge of determining who is mentally ill? Mental health professionals or the government? Because if you're going to lock people away for being mentally ill, the only way to do that is to have the force of the government behind it. So men with guns determining that they're going to arrest a person who's mentally ill and put them away so that they can't hurt other people. That means they're coming to your house and they're going to say to you, we've heard you are crazy, for lack of better terminology. We've heard you might be dangerous. We've heard you have a mental disorder or a mental health issue or an emotional health issue. And we've decided that we're going to come here for your own good and the good of your community. We're going to lock you away until you get better. Red flag laws, ladies and gentlemen. That's what they're talking about. They get to determine when you're dangerous and when you're not. Tara says in the chat, this won't stop until we have stronger families and stronger community again. That's what's going to change this. That and holding cowardice up to the light. And also allowing teachers, solid teachers, and putting someone with the experience and the mental acuity in a school 24 or not 24 hours, but from the moment before those doors open and after they close that night, you put someone in that school to watch it and protect it. Someone who's not going to hide outside of a door, someone who's not going to run and hide behind a corner, someone who knows what it's like and knows what needs to be done. A hard man who's experienced hard times. And yeah, I said a man. Hard men with guns stop evil. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate, and the Supreme Court, and the President of the United States, and the Office of Homeland Security, and every other person in the cabinet, and every other person in a position of elected authority at the state level, and even in your local level, has security, because hard men with guns stop evil men with guns. But they don't want to protect your children, and they want to take your guns away from you. I want you to think about that. Your current administration is arming their allies, attempting to disarm their enemies, and now they're trying to disarm you. What does that make you in their eyes if they're trying to take your guns while they're trying to disarm Russia? They see you as an enemy. Are these the people you want in charge of deciding who gets sent away because they're mentally ill? I don't know about you, but that's not who I want in charge. Go make a difference. Stand up for yourselves, for your liberties, and fight for this republic. Because if you don't, you're going to lose it. And I've been warning you. I won't be responsible. Till next time. Sic Semper. Tyrannus.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at